Hi everyone, my name is Daniela King and I will be presenting on improving accessibility in the publishing industry and what that looks like. Now, just for a quick overview, we're going to start with an introduction of what the publishing industry is and how accessibility pertains to it. We're going to talk about the major issues at hand and how marketing can help mitigate some of these issues. And we're going to close, and I have a discussion question for you all to respond to. Through my research, I found this quote by Steve Krug, and I just wanted to share it before we get started. He says, "The one argument for accessibility that doesn't get made nearly often enough is how extraordinarily better it makes some people's lives. How many opportunities do we have to dramatically improve people's lives just by doing our job a little bit better?" And this just really pertains to the publishing industry. If we are able to improve accessibility, it could really improve some people's lives, which just shows how important it is. To begin, I want to start with giving an overview of the publishing industry. Now, the publishing industry involves the production and the dissemination processes needed to make that information available. And this was traditionally comprised of printed works. So when we think of publishing, we often think of books, newspapers, and other written works that we can have tangibly. However, in our digital era, we have seen digital information totally transform the publishing industry. So we see published works now taking the form of blogs, ebooks, websites, and other electronic platforms that allow for the publishing industry to be very widespread and allow it to reach a large variety of audiences. So for my current event topic, I was given improving accessibility in publishing and what that looks like. So through this presentation, I want to explore a few things with you. One being, what are the major reasons for the limited accessibility in publishing and why is there so much room for improvement? I also want to look into why accessibility is even important to publishing, why it matters, what efforts could it contribute to, and also, I just want to discover how accessibility contributes to the success of the marketing mix for publishers, and also how marketing can be used to mitigate some of the issues that arise with accessibility in publishing. Alright, so diving into the major issues at hand when it comes to improving accessibility in publishing. Number one really comes down to cost. Publishers are worried about the increased production cost to include accessibility measures in their published works. Often with improving accessibility comes hiring a new staff or implementing new trainings to make sure that you are meeting those accessibility guidelines. So this is something that a lot of publishers grow a little weary of. Number two is lack of awareness in the need for accessibility and why it is important. A lot of times publishers often figure their budgets and their focus on things that they feel are more important, and this often gets neglected just because A, they don't know much about it, and B, they don't really know how to implement it correctly. And number three is the complexity of integrating and improving accessibility. There are a lot of systems, a lot of technology required to ensure that many different audiences get to enjoy content, and this is something that a lot of publishers don't know how to do or are not familiar with, so it often gets neglected, as I said. So this really leads us to the question, who does improvements in accessibility in publishing affect, and how is that implemented and what is used? So for the WHO, I think this is really interesting. The World Health Organization estimates that 1.3 billion people, which, just to put that in perspective, that's 16% of the world's population, are experiencing a disability or impairment. And then for our what is used to improve accessibility in publishing, that really comes down to technology. We live in an era of technology, which is great, but we really need to utilize those things to help work with the accessibility measures. So this might include AI, alternative text on photos, text-to-speech, and many other features that we probably haven't even discovered yet. So looking at this from a marketing perspective, the fundamental goal of marketing and publishing is to create that awareness, connect with a target audience, foster engagement, and boost sales. So through this, we kind of have to ask ourselves, how does improving accessibility in publishing contribute to positive results and better marketing? And number one, we have a broader audience reach. As I mentioned before, 16% of our population has a disability, which is a massive segment that we need to be targeting. And through accessibility, we will allow everyone to get to experience entertainment content and published works, which is ultimately going to broaden the reach. Number two, we have the positive user experience. If individuals feel like they can enjoy content the same way that others can, they're going to have a positive user experience. They're going to feel connected, they're going to engage, and they're going to continue to promote sales of the published works. And number three is really that growth and return on investment. As I said, publishers are apprehensive about the initial cost of improving accessibility. However, the ROI is definitely something that pays off in the long term. And really, to effectively connect with our audiences, we must improve our accessibility to ensure that we're meeting our audiences where they are. Now, one thing I also wanted to touch on was the application of the 4 C's of marketing that we discussed in class. So number one, the content. The content is complicated in the publishing industry as it comes with many complexities involving technology, layout, and really how the content created is made accessible to users who might need some additional measures for them to enjoy the content. Number two, we have Conduit. Publishers seeking to improve their accessibility might have to tailor their efforts. So this might look like putting more of an emphasis on the promotion of audiobooks, because some people with vision impairments may not be able to read a traditional book as others can. For the consumption, publishers must consider accessibility and make those accommodations and adaptations needed so all audiences can consume and enjoy their works. This can look like a variety of things, but this might include taking that extra time to make sure that there's alternative text or text-to-speech or anything that can help improve that user experience. And for convergence, I feel like utilization and integration of technology with the features that allow for increased accessibility, including translation, text-to-speech, alternative text, all those things, can really be used to ensure that the content of the published work is being effectively delivered to the audiences that may have a disability or an impairment. So just to summarize the importance of increased accessibility in publishing, we have such a vast majority of the population that has a disability, so accessibility in publishing is becoming increasingly important. However, there are those key issues limiting accessibility, which we touched on, are cost, complexity, and lack of awareness. However, it's important to note that improved accessibility in publishing benefits not only the consumer, but also the publisher, as we talked about those positive marketing efforts. And also, the issue of accessibility in publishing can be mitigated with those marketing efforts. And as we mentioned, that will allow for increased customer satisfaction, broader reach, and growth and positive ROI opportunities. So looking ahead into what the future of improved accessibility in the publishing industry looks like, I think as we see more technological advancements, we are naturally going to have an easier time in improving accessibility. We see this in artificial intelligence. This has been something that has been rising in popularity and has made life easier in a lot of ways for a lot of people. And so if machine learning is able to really transform some of the content of publishing into something that is available for people with disabilities, that would be a great use of it. Also, I think personally we're going to see more societal and legal pressure to improve accessibility in all industries, especially the publishing industry though, just because it is a tough industry and is traditionally one that is hard to make accessible, so I think we have a lot of ways to go there. And lastly, I think we're going to see increased training and development of accessibility measures so that employees of publishing companies have a better understanding of how to best meet the needs of those who require accessibility features. Now, with this being a pack discussion, I wanted to take this time to leave you with a final thought and consideration that you can use to respond to this discussion with, and also just get you involved in researching publishing and accessibility and what that looks like, because as I mentioned, it really is so important. So here I have find an example of a recently published work that took measures to prioritize accessibility. What did they do that stood out? How did they cater to audiences with disabilities or impairments? I would love to hear from you. I'd love to get some real life examples. You can drop them in the discussion. And I just want to thank you all for taking the time to listen to my presentation. And I look forward to working with you all the rest of the semester. Y'all have a good one.